Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be covering this, an automatic tree farm that is perpetually automatic, ideally. There's a couple things that we have a problem with our perpetual automation, and I'm going to use the other tree farm that we have over here to highlight the problems that we've been facing. So let's go over to this tree farm over here. Oh no, what's happened? So let me show you what's going on here. We're out of humus, or humus, as I believe it's supposed to be called, but I like hummus, it's easier to pronounce. So, the problem with our humus over here is that we have to keep providing it with humus, or it will run out. And this is kind of annoying, but it's not that bad when you think about it, because it actually runs a long time and produces a lot of biomass, even with the fact that we basically only provided it with one big set of humus. Actually, I think we provided it with just under 2. So we filled it up once and then we filled it up partially again. So 6 stacks of humus produce 266,000 biomass, or 266 buckets worth. So that's not bad. But over here, this is supposed to be truly automated. Something we're never supposed to need to interfere with. While I didn't quite get to that level, and you can't actually quite get to perfection with this setup, you can get pretty close, and you can even get closer than what I have set up here. So let's go over what I have set up here. And this center part is kind of what makes this all work. These are peat-fired engines. Peat is a nice material that produces 1 MJ of power in these engines. However, it does have another benefit. It produces ash when it burns up, and that ash has a extremely useful property for this tree farm. Tree farms require humus, as we've currently mentioned, and humus can be used with fertilizer, or dirt can be used with fertilizer or compost to make humus. How do you get fertilizer or compost? Ash or apatite, or I don't know. Whatever this is. This is obviously a very efficient way of crafting a lot of it, but ash is a easy, cheap way of crafting it that doesn't require us to run a quarry. So, we can use the ash from these engines to produce fertilizer, which we can then use to make humus. So that's all good and dandy, but where do we get the peat for those engines? Well, welcome to the peat bog. The peat bog is a nice little machine over here, which uses bog earth to produce peat. Just like trees, once they are produced on humus, the bog earth will turn into dirt instead of sand like the humus does. But this is useful because, as we've already shown off, humus takes dirt. So this peat bog farm turns that bog earth into dirt and peat. Peat turns into ash as well as power. And so we have, between the dirt provided by here as well as the ash provided by these engines as power, we have everything needed to perpetually run this tree farm forever. Well, potentially. There comes up a little bit of a problem with this. How do we keep the peat farm, or the peat bog farm running? Well, as you can see from this pipe mess, it takes a lot. The main problem that we face with this system is that peat bog requires the same materials that it takes to produce it. Let's show that off. It takes sand and dirt. Conveniently, our tree farm produces sand and our bog farm produces dirt. As you can see, it takes 4 sand and 4 dirt and makes it into 8 peat bog, or bog earth. And this is perfect because 4 of that dirt we get from the from these 8 bog earth can be used again in the recipe, and the other 4 can be used in humus to turn to sand to send back and make the recipe again. But you might notice we're also needing water. And this is where we run out of our perpetual energy system here, and that we need to provide it with water. So we have one of those aqueous accumulators over here, nice and fancy, and a liquid transposer. And then, of course, we're using cans, the cheapest material to produce a lot of them. It takes 3 tin, produces a ton of cans. Very useful. So this is our first cost in the system. We take tin. Now, this isn't to say that this is something required. As you can see, I only have one tree farm. But we can actually use 2 tree farms at the same time with 1 bog farm. And this will produce twice as much of everything. And this is something that's actually very good. Particularly, we need twice as many apples. Why apples? Apples can be used to provide mulch. You put this in a squeezer, you get apple juice, and then mulch is a 40% chance. Now, mulch is, voila, used to make bog earth without a can. You just take water, like liquid, like we would in the liquid transposer, and we use mulch instead of the can of water, and we get bog earth. So if we have 2 of these tree farms running, we will have enough apples to use mulch, and a carpenter to produce the bog earth without using the tin cans. So this is pretty cool. But then we run into one more snag. You know how I mentioned we need fertilizer over here? Well, the fertilizer recipe is very cheap. It just requires 1 sand block and 8 ash blocks. The system produces all the ash we need, and it also produces sand. But the problem is it doesn't produce extra sand. So this sand has to come from outside the system. This is the only thing that you can't perpetuate, in my opinion here, is this fertilizer production. We will need 1 sand per 2 fertilizer. But 2 fertilizer, as you can see over here with the hummus, would make 16 hummus. So it's really not that expensive. Basically, you need 1 sand per 16 hummus you use in the system to keep it running perpetually. And that's not very much at all. Now, as for why the piping sucks, I had never done this before, so I just started throwing things on the ground, and it got out of control. I quickly ran out of space, ran out of height, and started digging into the ground over here to put things down, and pipes, and oh my gosh. I don't want to bother showing you the logic of the pipes, because it's horrendous. But just notice that this is not an efficient way of doing this. I'm going to redo this eventually and make a nice 2 tree farm, 1 bog farm setup, and it's going to use pneumatic pipes. I potentially stayed away from them because I didn't want to confuse people, but forestry machines are confusing enough. So I'm just going to use pneumatic piping with my next system. It has a lot better logic with the pipes, and we can use sorters to get exact amounts of items where we need them to go. The problem with the pipes here are that they are probability based when you do things like this, 50-50, but that doesn't mean that you get 1-to-1, 1-to-1. I've got a pipe system over here that's supposed to filter out the heat that comes in over these engines evenly. But the problem is that they vary wildly, as you can see. Even though I've set it up correctly so that they should be perfectly even, the probability just doesn't do it for it. So I'm going to replace all these Buildcraft pipings with pneumatic pipes and build this system much more compact, and so you can look forward to seeing that. But I just want to show off that you can create this perpetuating system that runs between the 2 things. You get all the fertilizer you need from over there, and all of the dirt you need, and then from here you get all the sand you need over here. And as well as you'll get mulch from the apples. And so you can basically create these 2 systems in perpetuating loop with just a little bit of sand for that fertilizer. So yeah, this isn't an optimal setup, but I wanted to show it off so you guys could see that this is indeed possible, and you can look forward to when I redo this and it doesn't look so crappy. Thank you all and have a good day.